Michal, I'm really excited to welcome you on the podcast because you've been working in one of the fastest growing companies here in the Central European region as the head of engineering, head of product as well. You helped the company grow from literally zero to an amazing company with great team members, and you were interviewing hundreds of people along the way, including VP of Engineering and Director of Engineering. So, in the next half an hour or so, we are going to talk about your experience, and also you are going to share some insights for fellow Directors of Engineering, VP of Engineering, and even CTOs on how they can eventually get more and better opportunities, right? So welcome on the podcast.
Thank you very much. Thanks for inviting me, Michal.
Cool. So, just coming back to those recent interviews that you had with fellow directors of engineering or VP of engineering, is there any kind of event that you remember, something that was surprising, something that kind of stuck in your mind with regards to interviewing VP of engineerings?
Yeah, so if I look at the past couple of months, I was interviewing dozens of people for VP role, and the biggest surprise I've seen was the huge difference you can see between the first call with the candidate and then after the assignment. And the biggest surprise is that you see people with amazing CV, with amazing experience, who are making amazing first impression. But then when you get down to the assignment and they need to really prove that they can achieve what they promised on the first calls, you realize that there is a huge difference. There are few people who will nail it and they will do even better than they did on the first call. And then there is surprisingly many people who will fail at that round and will not be able to prove what they promised on the first call.
Oh, that's kind of surprising because when I, as the recruiter or the headhunter, speak with a VP of engineering or a CTO, it kind of looks very good on the paper. Usually, people can kind of you know increase probably the benchmark a bit for themselves in terms of what they have been working on, what were their responsibilities. But eventually, how can you get to the bottom of it? Kind of share some mirror to someone, or how do you set some benchmark for someone to realize that they are not there just yet?
Sometimes it feels like people who gain the experience, they believe in themselves more than they should. And when they are looking for a new job or they want to switch, they believe that whatever they did before is the right thing, and they are not relearning things again, or they are not looking at a different vertical or different industry. And that's where I saw seen it the most. They've been in a different vertical or different industry, and they wanted to use that knowledge and implement it in the different industry. Now, there are few cases where it will work, but in most cases, it will very likely not work. So my recommendation would be always check out the industry, and if you are moving in the same role but to a completely different industry, just double check how it works. Prep for it and then apply your knowledge. But that preparation is really needed. And I can see that some of the candidates, because they believe in themselves, they will spend 2 3 hours preparing the case study or assignment or whatever we will figure out. But that's not enough. That's enough if you really understand the vertical. That's enough when you understand exactly the company. But if you don't, then you need to spend more time preparing.
Mhm. So with regards to these case studies that you introduce in the second or third round, do you usually expect people to spend, let's say, a day or 2 days working on those case studies? Like, are these more complex projects, or is it something that serves rather as a kind of a brainstorming, or some content for eventually brainstorming discussion?
So we are trying to build our case studies in a way that if you are experienced in the field and in the role, it shouldn't take you more than 4 to 6 hours. If you are not experienced in the field or role, it will likely take you more. And for us, the assignment shows you two parts about the person. A, based on how much they spend on the assignment, you see how familiar they are with the role and the field. And second, how motivated or ambitious they are if let's say they are not yet ready for the role, or not that well known in the field, how much time they would spend and try to get great. And to me, it's not about nailing the assignment from perspective that they give the right answers. We are always looking at how you approach it. How do you communicate? If you're able to make assumptions, if you're able to challenge me, and that shows me the seniority of person. And that's the second part that I see when I'm hiring for the VP role, that there is probably 20 to 25% of people who are willing and able to challenge interviewer on the call. But from the VP role, that's what they are looking for. If someone doesn't challenge me, I'm questioning if they can be VPs, because what's the VP role about? It's about challenging the situation, challenging the problem, and trying to come up with the best solution.
That's a very interesting approach, and I'm sure that it's kind of hard to come up with the topic for the case study because everyone can have slightly different background, right? But you are testing probably the technical skills or maybe management. Like, can you give some more insights into what are you actually testing with the case study for the VP of engineering role?
Yeah, so we are testing both parts, kind of the soft skill of communication and being able to create top-down approach to presentation, but also hard skill. But we are picking the skill in the assignment based on the first or second interview call that we had with the person. Usually we have a set of questions where we would ask you, and then we will evaluate how good you are from our perspective based on what we've learned in those one or two calls. And then where we have question mark, then we will add it to the assignment. So typically there is the baseline that is same for everyone. And then we have additions to the assignment based on these calls. So we will double check if we seen it right or wrong, because you can always get wrong in the first call.
Yeah.
I don't feel that you can ever evaluate candidate on one or two calls.
Yeah, indeed, indeed. That must be hard. And how can someone who is preparing for the next job even get some feedback about where he or she is in regards to this benchmark? Because if you, as the interviewer, interview 10, 20 people, then you can compare them. But each of those individuals, they probably don't really know where they stand with regards to those different criteria. So, is there any way how these candidates can get some objective feedback? Like, have you heard of anything like this?
So I do believe that that's the role of headhunters in the market. That you can really go and talk to headhunters to get an opinion or feedback. But at the same time, you can go and talk to people of that level on LinkedIn. It happened to me probably two or three times where stranger to me but somehow connected through my network contacted me with a question about their career and the job, because they wanted to go to the similar field as I was. And I was always happy to give the feedback. So you can either reach out to people who are already at the level that you want to apply, or go and get career consultancy by headhunters or companies that are focused on it.
This is actually a great idea to get some objective feedback from some stranger, kind of in the same role, but someone who is not emotionally invested. It could be a recruiter, a headhunter, as you say, or a fellow VP of engineering. But then, how to figure out what aspects of the job to actually evaluate? Because the hard skills are usually less important for the highest roles. And the soft skills are probably a bit more important. Like, is there anything in between that you also interview for?
So to me, the most important is motivation and culture fit. So I'm always looking at motivation of people, and typically people whose motivation is, I was an engineer or I was a team leader and now I want to be a VP. That's a very questionable motivation from my perspective. Often these people do not understand what the role is about, or they are heavily underestimated. And if someone is heavily underestimating the role, you want to ensure that you know who you are hiring and if they are willing to go through the path. So, for example, if I see someone who just wants to climb the career ladder and go for the role, I would interview them in a different way because I need to understand, are they willing to go through all ups and downs of the role? That role is super difficult. I know many VPs who realized after doing the role that they do not want to be VPs because they realize that in engineering, if you are a former engineer and you love coding, that's the role where you do not code anymore.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you are not excited about communicating with people or solving people problems, not algorithm problems, that's what you do most of your time. So people need to get ready, and I'm always checking for that motivation. Are you ready to not be an engineer anymore, but are you willing to help engineers be better engineers? Are you willing to talk to the customer instead of your engineers? Are you able to be a shield of your engineers? Are you able to understand how business works? Are you able to talk with marketing? Are you able to talk with sales in a way not like, hey, tell me what to do and I'll do it, but in a way to try to understand, then challenge, get the challenge back, and then make a business decision together. So those are the things that I'm always looking for, and I do not have one or two questions that I could say that this is the silver bullet, but I get the feeling based on the motivation, and then I'll go through the interviews. And I can say that for this role, we spend at Bloomreach 5 to 10 interviews until we hire the person. So we would invest much more than into a typical role, exactly because of that reason. If VP engineering is super important role and you can't miss it, you can't hire someone and then let them go after 6 months. So we will spend rather more time interviewing until we both make a decision that this is the right path.
Wow, 10 rounds, that's kind of crazy, isn't it? 10 rounds of interviews. But it must be worth really to figure out who exactly to hire. And you mentioned something interesting with regards to the individual contributors, mostly coding, right? The engineers, and then the VP of engineering, mostly not coding. So, how can someone go through this transition? I mean, there are different levels, like leads or directors. Like, have you had these layers also at Bloomreach, and have you seen the shift from, like, let's say 0 and 100, and then 30 70 70 30, and then kind of flipping it this way?
Yeah, I've seen different combinations, and I even and these are the people that I admire the most, are those who made a decision, I want to go towards a lead or VP, and then once they got there and they were doing fairly good job, they decided that it's not the best for them, and they went down back to individual contributor. But basically, the path that I've seen is someone is really good individual contributor, then they will become a team leader, and then from team leader perspective, team leaders usually are still coding. I've never seen a team leader of small team who would be just manager, and that's the crossroad where you need to make a decision. Do I want to go more into more senior managerial position, or do I want to stay at this level, or do I want to even step aside into a different role? I've seen people who from that role would step out and become an architect,
Mhm.
because architect is super important role. Those are not coding anymore, somehow managing people, somehow managing algorithm. That's kind of strange role, but if they are very good at but that requires good communication and understanding of complex problems. So I've seen someone to go to team leader and then back down. I've seen someone to go to team leader and to architect, or even climb the ladder to VP. Even there is one person in my network who was amazing CTO for a long time. And recently he decided that it's not for him anymore. He wants to code. So he went back to being an individual contributor, building a specific R&D team, and is now playing around. And when I was trying to persuade one of my team members to become a VP, because I felt that he's amazing. He was 50-50, like 50% manager, 50% coder. I asked this friend that, hey, how can I persuade him? Because he has everything that a good VP needs. And his advice was, don't persuade him. If he believes that this is the best setup for him, don't try to push him into a different role because he will not be satisfied. And this person is extremely satisfied at that role. And he understands all the limits, all the benefits, but he's okay with it. And that's my recommendation to everyone. Just try to understand what is best for you as a person. Do you want to become manager? Be okay with what it means or check what it means. Do you want to combine coding and being a manager? Then probably VP role at a larger company is not it. Maybe in a startup, but company of 250 or more people probably really requires a full-time manager looking at people.
Well, this is an interesting insight, and it reminds me that I was in touch with one CTO who will be looking for a job probably 6 to 12 months from now. He's a CTO in a smaller company, and we were discussing the option to become a VP of engineering in a larger company. So, have you also seen these transitions? And if yes, then what would you be looking for? What kind of skill or behavior would be important for you to see whether this candidate would be a good fit, assuming the ego will let him to transition to a kind of lower rank, but in a bigger company?
Yeah, so what I would be looking at is how this person can manage stakeholders outside of engineering. Because the moment you are talking about VP of engineering at larger company, those roles are typically about managing stakeholders, understanding the budget, understanding the go-to-market strategy of the company, and then translating it towards engineering and trying to deliver on it. So I would be definitely checking on the ability to manage stakeholders, meaning active listening, then top-down communication, how that person can listen what is the need, understand the benchmark, and then challenge back, and then show how this would be translated into an engineering language. Because what I believe you can't expect from every engineer is to really understand how go-to-market of the company works, but that's why you need VP. What I would want every engineer to understand is understand the customer, why we are doing things. And once the VP can ensure that engineers understand the customer need, and then VP understands the business need, then I believe that there is a good combo. So that would be probably, I would spend most of the time on this side. And then I would also check about managing people, approach to the
Mhm.
team, understanding the culture, and how to scale the team, because there is a big difference to manage 20 people, 50, 100, or 200 people in engineering team.
No, this was a great advice. And how can someone actually prepare for the role? Because before you are supposed to manage the other stakeholders, like you don't know whether you can do it, right? Like you probably believe you could do it because, of course, I can talk to chief marketing officer, but when the time comes, probably you cannot. But how do you, as an interviewer, make sure that someone is ready for that job?
I'm usually checking the difference in the interaction between first, second, third, fourth call. And if someone can show improvement already during interviews, then I know that this person very likely will continue that improvement in the job, and I would hire the person. If I don't see that person is changing opinion or showing any signs of improvement between the calls, then I usually have a question mark. But typically, we would ensure that VP role meets the surrounding team, and everyone shares their opinion on the person if they believe that they could work together or not.
Mm. Oh, that's interesting. So the marketing officer, head of marketing, or chief marketing officer also interviews the VP of engineering.
Yeah, yeah. Or our at Bloomreach, it was our chief people officer who would interview, or someone from a different team, just to ensure that there is culture fit not only from engineering perspective but also towards the rest of the company.
Well, that's great. Okay, and what are some other aspects that the VP of engineering or the CTO should take care of when it comes to the hard skills? I mean, the hard skills are probably not as important, but still are important to some extent, right? Otherwise, you could get kind of anyone, right, from sales to become VP of engineering, which doesn't really happen. So there must be something into it. So what is it like? How to even think about the hard skills when applying for a VP of engineering role in a company such as Bloomreach, for example?
Yeah. So we were always looking to a person that engineers would trust and they would admire that person. And now they do not need to admire them for writing the best code, but they need to admire them at something engineering specific. Because if that's not there, then they do not trust the person. Exactly as you said, anyone could be the leader. So we would typically ask questions around, hey, look at this part of our architecture. What do you think about it? Or uh, what are the best and worst architectures in software as a service world that you've seen and why? What's your opinion on it? Or recently, since the AI is such a boom, we are asking them, how would you build an AI native team? And we are looking, and for that you really need to understand both the engineering side of it, how to build an architecture that delivers good results, but at the same time it showcases how you think about people, how you think about engineers, and how would you team them up, etc.
Hmm. Well, this is so interesting because I mean, this is something innovative, and someone who works in a traditional company probably didn't even have a chance to figure it out yet, but still can probably talk to some other people, talk to other VPs, talk to other CTOs, and just learn from conversations. Like, do you like personally, for example, do you have some network of other VPs that you are bouncing ideas off? Is this something that you would recommend also to others?
Definitely, and that's how I started. So to be completely honest and frank, my CV would never go through any interview for head of product or engineering role. At the time, I got into the role because I never did it in the past, and I had to quickly learn how to be a good leader of this team. So at the time, I knew that there is no way I can learn it alone. I need to work with others who did it before. So we created a small circle of CTOs and CPOs, and we've been meeting on a monthly basis and discussing different problems and the way how we are approaching them. And we were sharing our experience. And through that, we went through many topics, which we realized that almost everyone is solving same problems, but there are different ways how to approach it, and it was really helping all of us to build better teams. And it was super easy. I just messaged few people in my network, and they were all open to it. And we made a really amazing call. We were doing it almost for 2 years on a monthly basis.
Wow. Wow. So you were meeting in the evenings or over the weekends for just 2 hours and discussing topics?
Oh, we were doing it throughout the day. It was
Mhm.
part of the work. We have all families and kids, yeah, we were meeting and sharing the experience. We helped each other to solve the problems. I remember that there was a big one on product vision, how to communicate it towards the company. And this is maybe the other part that I'm always looking at interviews is the relationship between VP of engineering and VP of product, and that needs to click. I do believe that product and engineering is one body, and but many people don't believe that many managers would come in and say product is deciding what we should do and why we should do it, and engineering is deciding how to deliver on it. And
Mhm.
I don't believe in that framework. I do believe that on the why, it's defined by the business and the mission towards the customers. And then what, it's joint decision of product and engineering, and also on how, it's a joint decision of product and engineering. So when I was hiring good engineering leaders, I was always checking even the product thinking. Can they collaborate well and can they deliver together? And the best assignment I've ever seen on this role was when the person really said it, that hey, these teams needs to work together. These are the false assumptions that are happening in the market, and this person was able to say why those assumptions are false and how future product and engineering organizations should work. And to me, that's the winning mindset.
Yeah. Hashtag hired right away.
Yes.
Nice, nice. Okay, and you've been also working closely with the CTO for the last 9 years at Bloomreach, right? And it also changed after Exponia was acquired by Bloomreach. So, with your experience working with these C-level executives, what would you say is even more important the higher they are in the corporate ladder, so to speak? What are the things that make really a great CTO?
That's a good and difficult question. I think that the great CTOs are those whose brand is amazing. And what I mean by that is that people follow the CTO or C-level people. And in software companies, you always need to hire a lot of people. The better is the brand of the CTO, that he is known in the network, that that person did something very successful, then it's easier to hire really great talent. So one of the key things of the good CTO or great CTO is that they need to be known for something they did well and people want to work with them. So that's the first one. And the second one is that they're always hiring, even if there are no open positions, because you never know when you need a new position. And this person enjoys it. There are many engineering leaders who hate hiring, but that's their role. That's probably the most important role of the CTO after running a team, is to be able to hire a great team and then keep that team motivated, so they are excited about what the business does, what's their vision, and they are able to deliver on it. And then lastly, great CTOs are able to let people do their work and not try to micromanage them. And this is another thing that I've seen with many engineering leaders or CTOs, because they've been an engineer at some point, they know how to do things, but sometimes you need to let others to decide and learn even by their own mistakes. So being able to let go and let the team do sometimes mistakes and support them and motivate them to be even better. That's probably the last one I would say. I don't think that CTO needs to be great at building new architecture. I don't think that CTO needs to be great at coding anymore. It's all about the team, people, and creating the culture in which innovation happens at a high quality.
Well, you distilled it very well. And when you said that the CTO should be excited about hiring and enjoy the hiring process, it just reminded me one of our really probably the best clients ever. Like he was kind of, you can see the sparkle in his eyes when we sent some candidates, and he was like, "Oh my God, let's hop on a call with a candidate quickly." And he was just interviewing very quickly and deciding on who to hire and who not. Like that's probably the spirit that you have in mind.
Yeah.
Awesome. Awesome. And with regards to the brand, I guess that also helps to attract new people, but even to retain talents within the company because they want to work with a really kind of interesting person. But the brand is usually outwards facing, right? People who see the person on LinkedIn or on conferences, but from inside, you are looking at the person's personal traits. Like the leadership skills or personality. Like is there any way how to even prepare for the next job as a CTO? For example, some of the people from our community, they are preparing for a CTO job. They are CTOs, but they plan some change in the next 6 months, 12 months. So besides the outward facing LinkedIn rebranding, like personal traits need to change as well, probably somehow, or at least to facilitate the change. I mean, kind of long question, but I guess you see where this is heading. So how can a CTO prepare for the next role to be really a great CTO, the one that you have in mind, the one who others will enjoy working with?
Yeah. Uh, that's
That was a long a long question.
that's a tough one, but I'll speak up as it gets through my mind. So
Mhm.
what I do enjoy about when I talk to senior people, let's say this way, and doesn't depend if it's CTO or VP level, the most exciting part is when we talk about learnings. What did you learn about yourself that you do great, or maybe you are very poor at, and what did you do with it? So if I see a senior leader who has an ability to have a great self-reflection, that hey, I was leader like this. This is what I was doing great, and this is what I wasn't doing great, but I wanted to change it. These are the things that I did to change it, and this is how I do now. that's usually the winning pitch on any interview, at least with myself. So if there is a current CTO thinking about switching to be a CTO in a different company, my advice would be do a self-reflection on what you achieved, how you did well, where maybe not, and if you want to change it, do something about it. If your communication is not great, work with communication coach and do better. If I don't know, your stakeholder management is not great, just do better and work with someone who will help you. If you want to be better at new technologies, for example AI, show a proof that you're trying to learn how to build a AI native company or team. So pick a topic. There are such easy ways today to improve because there is hundreds of it's even the moment you decide, find someone who really can help you is the more difficult part because there is so many options now. So just but for every topic there is someone great in the market who is willing to help, and you just need to invest some money in it and be better.
Yeah, yeah, well, that's so true. Now, even ChatGPT can generate those responses. The hard part is to talk to ChatGPT and ask the right questions, and then have the discipline to actually execute.
Yeah.
Awesome, awesome, cool. Cool. So, if you kind of before we wrap it up, is there anything you would like to share with VP of engineering or with CTO, someone who is preparing for the next job, as kind of a final advice? Like you mentioned, the community or get together. You mentioned learning. Is there anything that from top of your mind you would say like, hey, I want every VP of engineering, every director of engineering to know this in order to get more and better career opportunities?
Yeah, learn benchmarks in the industry that you are applying for and then apply them during the interview process. Ask for benchmarks, ask the company how they do, challenge them why or how they could do better, and how you can bring the value to the table. And that's probably the most important part. Try to understand during the interview process how you can bring the value, not how the company can bring value to you. And that's what I see often during the interviews, that people are looking only at themselves and they are forgetting that they are going to work with or for a company. And that's the most important part, is to be able to learn how you can bring the value. And if you can learn it and then you can articulate that this is the value you can bring to the table, I don't believe that any hiring manager wouldn't hire such a person.
Wow. Well, you shared so amazing tips. Really, like this one really nailed it. But even the previous ones, we will mention in a blog post. There's kind of the advice to get to the better job, because this was really very very powerful. Awesome. Where can people connect with you, or learn more about what you do, and connect if if they would like to get some more advice?
Yeah, so they can always find me on LinkedIn. I usually reply on LinkedIn messages in few days. I'm not that type of person who would reply in every hour, but feel
Mhm.
free to reach out and but reach out with a topic that you would like to discuss, and then we can get in touch.
Wonderful. Okay, so I'll include the link to your LinkedIn profile in the comments. Awesome, great. Well, thanks for sharing all the insights and hiring and interviewing tips. It was very useful, and yeah, we will keep in touch.